relentless boom of artillery was only overshadowed by the cold, mocking tone of my voice as I faced the human commander across the digital negotiation table, set against the backdrop of a raging battlefield on Earth. Commander Stanton, surely you realize resistance is futile. Your defenses are as primitive as your species. Surrender now, and we may spare what remains of your quaint little civilization. Commander Stanton, a seasoned veteran, with steel in his eyes, stared back, unflinching. It's not in our nature to give up, Commander Yolth. We'll fight with everything we've got. You might think little of us, but humanity has a way of surprising those who underestimate us. I scoffed, my four eyes narrowing in disdain. Surprises? From a species still tethered to such a fragile planet. Our Scolari fleets have subdued mightier civilizations with a fraction of the effort. From my command deck, I signaled to my fleet. The hovering ships above Earth's atmosphere adjusted, their cannons aiming with precision at strategic military bases. Watch closely, human, I taunted, and witness the might of the Scolari confluence. As our cannons unleashed a barrage of plasma that lit up the sky, turning night into a blinding day for a fleeting moment, the human's expression didn't waver. Instead, he tapped into his communicator, issuing commands that were lost in the static of war. Our orbital sensors are picking up significant movements from your surface, Commander, my lieutenant reported, his voice tinged with a rare hint of uncertainty. It appears they are launching something. Let them, I replied dismissively. No Earth-made technology can penetrate our shields. But as human missiles, unexpectedly advanced, began striking our frigate-class ships with alarming accuracy, I felt a seed of doubt take root. Our shields flickered under the onslaught of what appeared to be nuclear-enhanced projectiles, modified hastily but effectively for space combat. Adjust the shields! Counter their attacks! I barked, my composure cracking as the human forces continued their relentless assault. Commander Stanton's face reappeared on the communication screen, a grim smile forming as he watched our disarray. You see, Commander Yolth, we've been preparing for possible extraterrestrial threats since we first pointed our telescopes at the stars. You are not the first to underestimate humanity. The humans' fighter jets, agile and quick, darted through the debris of their own missiles, their pilots executing maneuvers that exploited the brief vulnerabilities in our defenses. Their attacks were not random. They were strategic, targeting our communications and weapon systems with precision I had not anticipated. The skirmish escalated quickly into an all-out battle. Our superior technology was countered by human ingenuity and unpredictability. They adapted their tactics on the fly, learning from each pass, each exchange of fire. As night descended on Earth, the tide of the battle had unmistakably shifted. Their flagship, the USS Retribution, a massive battleship whose armaments and shielding had clearly benefited from reverse-engineered alien technology, led a daring charge against our weakened defenses. Fall back! The order tasted bitter in my mouth, a command I had never anticipated issuing. As my ship, the Dominance, turned to retreat, the view screens showed Earth resilient and defiant, surrounded by the debris of what had been my invincible fleet. In the aftermath, as we regrouped in the safety of space, far from Earth's orbit, I recorded this log not as a victor, but as a humbled commander. The humans had not only survived, but had repelled our assault, solidifying their resolve and undoubtedly their reputation among the star-faring races. Sitting now in the debriefing room, facing the inquiries of the Scolari High Command, I contemplated the Earthlings' resilience, their tactical acumen, and the spirit that had driven them to victory. It was clear that in underestimating humanity, we had not only failed to conquer, but had sparked a new, formidable opponent in the galactic theater. As we prepared for the repercussions of this failed invasion, I couldn't help but reflect on the indomitable nature of humans, a species that thrived on adversity and transformed underestimation into triumph. The interrogation from the Scolari High Command was as intense as the battle had been. Each member of the council looked at me with a mix of disbelief and scorn as I detailed the unexpected human retaliation. Explain, Commander Yolth, how a species with such comparatively primitive technology managed not just to resist, but to rout a Scolari fleet, demanded the chief of the High Command, his voice cold and sharp. I stood firm despite the sinking feeling. They leveraged a combination of guerrilla tactics and advanced nuclear propulsion missiles that our intel had not previously recorded. It seems they have been preparing defenses against extraterrestrial threats in secret, developing technologies specifically designed to counteract our advantages. The room buzzed with murmurs. It was clear the Council was struggling to grasp the extent of human ingenuity. And what of our losses? Another Council member asked, her tone laced with anxiety. Our fleet suffered significant damages. Several frigates were lost, and the Dominance sustained critical damage to its propulsion systems. The humans targeted our vulnerabilities with precision, exploiting every gap in our shield during missile reload phases. A tactic we hadn't anticipated, I explained. The Council members exchanged uneasy glances. The implications of this defeat were beginning to dawn on them. The Scolari confluence had long prided itself on its military prowess, and a defeat of this nature was not just a tactical loss, but a blow to our standing in the Galactic Council. Commander Yolth, this council must consider the possibility that Earth will use this victory as a stepping stone to galvanize other systems against us. The Chief of the High Command stated solemnly, "We need to reassess our strategies and consider diplomatic channels to mitigate further damage to our reputation and security." I nodded in agreement, feeling the weight of my responsibilities. I recommend we initiate a diplomatic outreach to Earth. We should propose a treaty offering technology exchange for a non-aggression pact. It is imperative we turn this defeat into an opportunity for a strategic alliance. The suggestion sparked a heated debate among the council members. Some argued that negotiating from a position of weakness would only invite further challenges to Scolari authority. Others, recognizing the shifting dynamics in interstellar power, supported the idea as a means to secure our borders and maintain influence. As the council deliberated, I pondered the broader consequences of my actions and the war. Humanity had not only defended itself, but had also sent a clear message to the galaxy. Underestimating them had been our folly, and now we had to forge a new path forward, one that potentially included humans as allies rather than adversaries. This war, born from arrogance and disdain, had reshaped the interstellar landscape, and I, who had sparked its flames, now had to help navigate its aftermath. After the Council's decision to pursue diplomacy, I was chosen to lead the delegation to Earth. It was a task that carried a heavy burden of redemption for my earlier miscalculations. Preparations began immediately, and within weeks we were en route to the planet that had proved to be a formidable opponent. The journey, usually a time for strategic planning and rest, was tense with anticipation of the unknown reception awaiting us. We entered Earth's orbit under a banner of peace, our communications openly broadcasting our intentions. I couldn't help but feel a pang of anxiety as Earth's defense systems locked onto our ship, a stark reminder of the power and readiness that had devastated our fleet. Upon landing, we were met not with military escorts, but with a delegation led by Commander Stanton himself, the same man who had faced me across the negotiation table during the war. His presence was a statement. Earth was willing to negotiate, but they had not forgotten. "Commander Yolth," Stanton greeted, extending his hand in a gesture of human goodwill that I had learned to respect. "Welcome to Earth. We hope this visit marks the beginning of a new chapter between our peoples." The handshake was firm, and his eyes held a sincerity that eased some of my tension. "Thank you, Commander Stanton. It is our hope as well," I responded, aware of the numerous cameras capturing the moment for both human and Scolari audiences. We were escorted to the United Nations, where our talks would occur. The building was an architectural marvel, blending Earth's historical aesthetics with modern technology, symbolizing their culture's respect for the past and their relentless push toward the future. The negotiation room was filled with representatives from Earth's various governing bodies, along with top scientific and military advisors. The discussions were initially formal, each side laying out their primary concerns and objectives. Earth's leaders were keen on securing a mutual defense pact and access to our advanced technology, especially in environmental recovery and energy production, areas where Scolari expertise was unrivaled. On our side, the delegation focused on trade agreements that could benefit our depleted resources and a formal treaty that would prevent future conflicts. The atmosphere was cautious yet optimistic, as both sides clearly wanted to avoid past mistakes. As the talks progressed over several days, I was struck by the humans' tactical approach to negotiation. They were adept at blending diplomacy with subtle reminders of their readiness to defend their sovereignty. It was a dance of words and wills, and I found myself developing a genuine respect for their leaders' acumen. However, the negotiations hit a snag when the topic of war reparations came up. The human representatives argued that the Scolari should compensate for the destruction caused during the invasion. This demand was a bitter pill, challenging our position and forcing us into a defensive corner. I understand the damages incurred were substantial, I acknowledged, keeping my tone diplomatic. However, it is also true that our actions, though aggressive, were initially triggered by human mining activities that violated the territorial sovereignty of Tyria. We must find a balanced approach to this issue. Commander Stanton nodded, his expression thoughtful. Perhaps instead of direct reparations, the Scolari could assist in rebuilding the affected areas on Earth. It would be a more productive way to amend for the past. This suggestion shifted the conversation towards a more constructive resolution. We discussed how Scolari technology could help rehabilitate Earth's damaged ecosystems, turning the reparations into a collaborative effort that would foster goodwill and deeper cooperation. The days stretched into nights, with sessions often running late as we tackled complex issues one by one. Slowly, a treaty began to form, one that addressed not only our immediate concerns, but also laid down a framework for future interstellar relations. One evening, after a particularly grueling negotiation session, I walked with Commander Stanton along one of Earth's famous landmarks, the Reflecting Pool in Washington, D.C. The calm water mirrored the night sky, a peaceful contrast to the day's debates. Commander Yolth, I've been meaning to ask, Stanton began, his tone casual but curious. What was it like for you, personally, commanding the fleet during the war? His question caught me off guard, prompting a moment of introspection. It was a duty I performed with pride, but also with a great misconception of humanity's resilience, I admitted. This mission, these talks, they've shown me a side of humans I had not considered. Your capacity for forgiveness and cooperation is as formidable as your defense strategies. Stanton smiled, a genuine expression of appreciation. And you, Commander, have shown a capacity for change and adaptation that's admirable. It gives me hope that this treaty will not just be words on a page, but a true path to lasting peace. As we returned to the negotiation table the next day, the final hurdles seemed less daunting. The treaty was signed with a ceremony that was broadcast across both our worlds, marking an end to hostilities and the beginning of a promising alliance. Reflecting on the journey from war to peace, I realized that the true strength of a civilization lies not just in its ability to wage war, but in its capacity to bridge differences and forge alliances. This lesson, learned not through victory, but through reconciliation, would guide us into a new era, one of shared prosperity and mutual respect. As the new treaty between Earth and the Scolari confluence was heralded across the globe and throughout the stars, its implications began to ripple through the corridors of power on both sides. The alliance born from the ashes of conflict was more than a ceasefire. It was a beacon of shared futures and intertwined destinies. Back on Tyria, the sentiment was mixed. While many celebrated the end of hostilities and the promise of Earth's technological assistance in ecological restoration, others harbored doubts about the wisdom of sharing our advanced technology with a species we had so recently deemed a threat. These voices grew louder, fueled by the traditionalists within the High Command who viewed the treaty as a capitulation, a stain on the proud martial history of the Scolari. I, Commander Yolth, found myself often defending the treaty in councils and meetings, arguing not from the position of weakness, but from a strategic perspective. We have not surrendered our heritage, I would say, but have instead ensured our survival through partnership. Earth has shown both its capability and its resilience. By allying with them, we gain not only their strengths, but also a critical place in their narrative of progress and recovery. Meanwhile, on Earth, the reconstruction efforts in the regions most affected by our initial assault began to show tangible results. Scolari engineers worked alongside human counterparts, employing advanced terraforming technologies that impressed even the most skeptical of Earth's environmentalists. These joint projects served as fertile ground for more than just rehabilitation. They became sites of cultural exchange and understanding, breaking down barriers far beyond what diplomatic negotiations could achieve. The changes weren't confined to policy and reconstruction. On a more personal level, I witnessed transformations that no treaty could dictate. During a visit to one of the joint operation sites, I met a group of Earth soldiers who had fought in the defense against our forces. Expecting tension and hostility, I was taken aback by their openness and willingness to share stories from the front lines. One young soldier whose family had been directly affected by the fighting approached me hesitantly. "Commander Yolth," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "my town was one of the first you hit. I lost friends, neighbors. When I heard I'd be working with Scolari, I was angry, I won't lie. But seeing you here, working with us, helping us rebuild, it's changed something in me. Maybe this is how we make sure it never happens again." His words struck a deep chord within me, echoing my own thoughts on how true victory is achieved, not when we defeat our enemies, but when we transform them into allies. This sentiment was echoed in the broader public discourse, back on Earth and across the Scolari territories as well. Media outlets, once filled with wartime propaganda, now featured stories of collaboration and shared innovation. Schools on both planets began to exchange students and teachers, fostering a generation that would grow up with a fundamentally different understanding of the other. However, not all were swayed by the winds of change. A faction within the Scolari military, calling themselves the Purists, began to rally against the treaty, pushing for a return to isolationist policies and the reclamation of our perceived martial superiority. This movement gained traction among those who felt disoriented by the rapid cultural shifts and the sudden embrace of former enemies. The situation reached a critical point when the Purists staged a protest during a high-profile summit on Tyria, attended by both human and Scolari leaders. The protest turned violent, threatening to derail the peace process and reignite hostilities. I was at the summit, and as the situation escalated, I found myself once again facing Commander Stanton, not across a battlefield, but as partners trying to quell a crisis that could undo all we had achieved. "Commander," I said, as we coordinated our security teams, "we must present a united front now, more than ever. If we let this incident fracture us, the Purists will have won." Stanton nodded, his expression grim but resolute. "Let's address them together," he suggested. "Show them that this alliance is stronger than their fear and hatred." Together we addressed the crowd, Scolari and human alike, our message broadcast across both planets. We spoke of the lives saved through our cooperation, the disasters averted through shared knowledge, and the mutual benefits that peace had brought us. Gradually, the violence subsided. The sight of their leaders standing side by side, unyielding in their commitment to peace, persuaded many to reconsider their stance. The purists' influence waned, though they remained a vocal minority, a reminder of the vigilance peace requires. As calm returned, so did the slow, steady work of building a galactic partnership. The treaty that had once seemed like the end of a war became the foundation of a new era. In my subsequent reports to the High Command, I outlined not just the strategic advantages of our alliance with Earth, but the moral imperatives that drove us to maintain it. Years later, as I watched Tyrian children playing with their human friends under the twin suns of our world, I realized that the legacy of our choices would be measured not in the battles we had fought, but in the peace we had nurtured. The war with Earth had taught us that underestimating humans was a grave mistake, not because of their military prowess, but because of their extraordinary capacity for resilience, forgiveness, and partnership. In the annals of Scolari history, I am often credited with navigating us through one of our most perilous chapters. Yet, whenever I reflect on those tumultuous years, I see not my own leadership, but the countless acts of bravery and compassion on both sides that truly shaped our shared destiny. This story, then, is not one of war, but one of reconciliation, and the enduring truth that unity, once forged in the fires of conflict, can light the way to a brighter future for all.